Well, hello. I'm Ernie Neman. I'm from Tuanz, the Telecommunications Users Association of New Zealand. And with me out on this beautiful farm is Rod Oram. Rod is adjunct professor at Unitech and is very well known across New Zealand as a business commentator in the media. And we're here having a chat about the Tuanz Rural Broadband Symposium that's going to be held in Rotarua on the 3rd and 4th of July. And Rod, you and I were both at the one in Timaru that we had 18 months or so ago. What was your impression of that?
Oh, that was a great event because it was very exciting to see the way the technology is developing on farm and therefore the capability that farmers need from the carriers to deliver good broadband. And I thought it was just a terrific array of, first of all, telecommunications providers, and we had everything from wire service providers to wireless and of course satellite as well, and then through to some really good applications that people were using, but then also crucially in a sense the social dimension, not so much in the sense of being able to keep your social life right, but in the way of being farmers being able to network well, to be able to share information and best practice. So it was a great conference.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, we tend to sort of think of rural broadband applications very much along the lines of farm productivity and farm security and that sort of thing, but the social well-being of rural communities is equally important. Because if farmers want to get over the problem of getting farm labour and having people living in more isolated places, especially with more expensive petrol and that sort of thing, we need to make sure that rural lifestyles have got some of the bells and whistles of attraction of those in the cities.
Absolutely. There's a concept that I love to articulate because about farming in New Zealand. We often hear particularly from non-farming high technology areas of the economy, that they're doing the serious high-tech stuff, and there's this chronic lack of engineers in New Zealand, and that's one of our great weaknesses. And I turn around and say, well, actually our engineers are our farmers, and increasingly they're data-driven. And South Korea might have more engineers per 100,000 of population, but that's because they've got shipyards and car factories. And our farmers are engineers, but trying to do something far harder, where you're in an environment like this that you can't control, and you're still trying to maximize your production. You're trying to control an awful lot of variables. So this is the hard place to try and do that, and of course the better we get on those systems, and the more that farming becomes data driven, and farmers can make really good decisions about how they're working their stock and their land, I think we'll see some very big gains in farming to come.
And there are other resources as well. I mean, we're talking about micromanaging the application of fertiliser, more in that corner of the paddock and less in that one over there. We're talking about scarce water resources and better quality management of that so that it can be done day by day instead of year by year. The use of resources can be greatly improved with this kind of technology over the top. We are approaching a major change to that, and I think the scene is set now for us to get serious broadband to most or all of New Zealand's farms, provided we can actually make the business case and demonstrate to the industry and the government that it can be used for productive and social usages that will give them a payback.
What's the telecommunications sector's sense of how fast the costs can be driven down? Both the setup cost, but also then the ongoing operating cost of good broadband. Now, I realise that's going to vary hugely from place to place, depending on how far you are from the node and all that kind of stuff. But do you think there are some big gains to come, even over just the next few years, on the capital cost and operating cost?
On the operating cost, unquestionably, those costs are coming down all the time. The capital cost is an interesting question. If you ask phone companies these things, they tend to take the gold-plated bells and whistles view of life, and they're a bit inclined, I think, sometimes to over-engineer the results. I like to think about the rollout cost. I mean, the big cost of rolling out fibre optic, for example, is not in the cable itself. It's cheap. The cost is in the holes that you bury it in, and you can't just go and import a whole lot of second-hand holes from China under the free trade agreement. So they're very expensive to put in. Now, if we can get our minds out of having to bury the cable, and if we can say to ourselves, look, we already have a line of poles going to just about every farmhouse in the country, surely we can string some fibre optic cable across the top of those to replace the existing copper. And maybe even some farmers could run working bees and spend some weekends with their tractors and cherry pickers out there doing exactly that. Then all of a sudden it starts to look so much more manageable.
There's an aspect of that connection from an international basis, is that it's quite easy to imagine, because this already happens in Europe, consumers wanting real connection back to particular farms. And yes, you can kind of just all load that up on a website, and and the website could be in California for anybody who knows. The server farm could be up there. But the idea that in some cases it may be possible to have that better connection between consumers right back to the farm, to individual farms, I think is an exciting prospect, because there is certainly huge interest in New Zealand out there in the world, and these days where people are so conscious about where their food comes from, they want to be able to make that connection. Now, I'm not saying that this will get down to some webcams in the shed and the rest. That'd be far too intrusive. But it would be great to see that that sort of relationship being established in some cases.
Oh yeah. I mean, the whole point about this technology is that it reduces isolation or removes isolation. I mean, you look at the road behind us here. Every farm in New Zealand has a road like that, or in some cases a higher standard. Those roads have cost an absolute fortune to put right through rural New Zealand. And by comparison, this fibre optic cabling that we're talking about is a tiny fraction of that. And the impact is just as profound.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a great event, and you're going to chair it, Rod. I'm really pleased about that.
Real
Looking forward to it.
Yep.
So it's at Rotarua. It's on the 3rd and 4th of July, and registrations are well and truly open. We've got 30 or 40 people, I think, registered already. And anyone who has a stake in the future of farming in this country and the future of rural communities, and has a sense of just what communications technology harnessed to the maximum and combined with some really good Kiwi ingenuity can do for that industry, should come along. We'd love to have you there.
And Rotarua has got some of the best mountain biking in the country. I'm planning to bring my bike, so if anybody wants to bring their bike, I'm sure we can work in a few good rides.
Yeah, if they haven't got the bike, then there's always the luge, isn't there?
Oh, there is. It's a very dangerous place, Rotarua.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It can be a lot of fun.
That's right.
And the conference will be a lot of fun, as well as having a really important impact in terms of economic development. So we'll see you there.
See you there.